Hello, hello. This is Chris Park of Arcen Games. I'm the founder and lead designer. And I have been remiss for the last couple of weeks. I said that I was going to give an update, and I did not. And there were a variety of reasons for that. Among them was the fact that our website started having a lot of technical issues on the hosting provider that we were on. So we had to switch hosting providers, and then um, as typically happens with that sort of thing, um, not so much hilarity ensued, but that took up about half of my working time over the last little while. The other thing has been I estimated that destruction in this game, namely things like this, um, oops, putting out the lights. Um, um, there we go. Namely stuff like that. I estimated that that was going to take me about a day or so more than it already had been at the time of, well, this was almost 2 weeks ago now. A lot of that had to do with the fact that I already had 4 different solutions for it, and I had them all working up to a certain extent. That sound effect is super duper temporary, by the way. It's not even mine. It's one that came stock with the Explosion software, with Dynafracture anyway. The nice glass sound effects here, those ones are mine, but um, and those those wood sounds as well on the minor impact sounds and so forth. They're mine too. I haven't found a real. I haven't bothered working on explosion type stuff yet. I think I'm going to do these shattering in metal with some sparks and so forth, but I haven't gotten into putting particles into these yet. Anyway, getting distracted from what I was originally going to say, which was that I felt like I was going to have a pretty quick run at this with the destruction because I didn't want to sink an enormous amount of time into it. I had recently spent a whole lot of time working on both the camera system as well as the system for um, occlusion culling, which is basically uh, hiding stuff that is not within view of your um, screen. And so I'll show you an example of what I mean. This is the scene view, and so this is looking in places that I wouldn't be allowed to see in the game view, which is down there. Oh my gosh, it's going nuts. Um, at any rate, here in the scene view, you can see that a whole bunch of geometry and lights and so forth from the level have turned off. There's a variety of other things that are not part of my particular occlusion culling system at the moment, simply because this is a prefab level and its stock came with the from the Unity Asset Store with some components that I'm using here, and it's really, really poorly optimized for the type of occlusion culling that I want to do. So my occlusion culling system works pretty darn well, but it's a shadow of what it will be able to do. At any rate, I spent a ton of time on that in the first half of this month and late last month, and I did not want to spend that kind of time working on shattering. But shattering is actually really important to the mechanics of this game. Let's see if I can even get the game back up here. It's uh, the where on earth did I get my game window to here? I have. It did not want to play nicely there, and it has made some sort of terrible. Um, okay. I guess what I will do is this here. Here we go. Okay, got it back. Um, anyhow, destruction is pretty central to this game. because you're a raptor, you need to be able to interact with the environment and destroy all sorts of different things. You need to be able to pounce on robots and knock them to pieces. You need to be able to, break glass and potentially bust through doors and that sort of thing. You also need to be able to, uh, with these really large mech enemies that I've got working on, some of them are more human-sized, and the idea is that you would pounce on them. Other ones are much, much larger, and the idea is that you will instead uh, dismantle them piece by piece. So you come in and you kick part of them. This is like the worst kick animation, by the way. It's pretty funny. Um, you know, or you bite them at various parts, or you do the tail slaps. And you know, with a compound enemy that's got gun on an arm and various other components, so if you can break them apart and then the arm is still working and the gun is still shooting on the arm, but you want to push that away with one of your leaps and so forth. You get a lot of really interesting gameplay potential out of that sort of thing. Um, and aside from the fact, oh, I said stop talking because you can't hear me when that happens. Aside from the fact that destroying stuff is just fun and makes it for an interesting um, addition to the other mechanics of the game. Not really designed to be able to be trying to hit those lights constantly. There's some things that the Raptor is not super set up for doing yet that I haven't that I still need to work with. Like I said, this is a temp level. The performance on this is pretty abominable compared to what a finalized level would be, although it's not bad. It's been improved dramatically from what I was seeing in the past before doing all my various updates. This is using a ton of very interesting post-processing, a lot of which can be backed off if need be. Um, right now I'm playing with the keyboard and mouse, but here I'll switch to playing with the Xbox One controller instead. And you'll notice that the way that I'm moving the cursor around, the camera around, and so forth is a bit smoother, partly because of that. And I played this a lot on the gamepad. I don't remember all the controls. A lot of the sound effects are, still to come. Obviously, it's a very, quiet experience in the main right now. But one of the things that's big on my list to do is really having spatial audio. You'll notice there's some of that now. Probably, if you're wearing headphones, you've probably already noticed that. Just, excuse me, to a small extent. But it really is not something that is. It really is not something that is overly prevalent in. Where is my kick? There it is. The gamepad, I couldn't remember where the kick was. These things are a little big for the kicking anyway. But okay, I'm done making a fool of myself with that. I'm switching back to the controls I know better. What I will show you now. This is a fun little scene here. This one, the glow and so forth looks pretty strange, but you can see the cool sky effects there, and some of the various physics and so forth. That it's really not designed for this particular lighting, and so it looks garish for sure. But this was a fun test scene for working with grounder and a few other things. So, and I still, on very rare occasion, will use that. This is a scene. This is a scene here that actually uses the procedural generation, and it's actually kind of shocking how different it looks compared to what it. If you've seen this module, it's called Dungeon, and I haven't made any changes in this. I don't think. The materials I may have changed. I don't know, but it looks amazing because a lot of the post-processing effects, and a lot of that has to do with like the screen space reflections and neat things like that. It's all very efficient. Bandicam is slowing down my recording a fair bit, but you can see even with that being fairly slowed down, and this is not using any occlusion culling whatsoever, still getting 180 to 250 frames a second in it. I will note also that these are stock animations. We have much better ones that Blue is finishing up in terms of the walk, run, and idle, and then other animations, bite and kick and swipe and a few other things like that, which are coming. These particular rooms are, small and closed top or open topped, and generally just not what this game is going to be like. But I think it's actually kind of fun to see what the basic dungeon generator is before it's got all that sort of thing plugged in. One other thing that I'll show you is here where come on, here this one is a test scene that has a number of the components that Blue has created. These were based off of original flat pieces of wall from the industrial component, and Blue has turned these into three-dimensional wall pieces that we can use, and ceiling pieces that we can use in a variety of ways. And the texturing of materials is a lot better. We've done some work with like the normal maps and whatnot. It's something that we are going to do even better than it is right now. I need to get MapLab in here and really go to town on some of the things, but overall it's pretty cool in terms of how it turned out. One of the things, our SVN log is ridiculous. I mean, this was last Thursday, right before I did the last update, and I was like, I'll do a video when I'm done with some of these other bits, and then, a couple of weeks later, we've got all that. I've got, I took a video of this in advance because it's slow to try and show it, but this is original footage I took just a minute ago, right before starting this video, of the and the frame rate being low like this is not a Bandicam thing. I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but this is the industrial scene before I got my hands on it. For some reason this is running, I apologize if this makes you nauseous, it's like 20 frames a second a lot of the times. Part of it is it's trying to use a bunch of reflection probes and a bunch of light, baked lighting, and it's having trouble doing that. And originally the performance was not that bad on this. so I'm not sure exactly. Something didn't import quite right. The scene the original author provided was not this laggy by any stretch of the imagination, but it was set up for static scenes. In other words, things where you could set up your occlusion to start out with in a pre-made level. In other words, not a procedural level, and it would bake the occlusion in advance versus mine is real time. For the reflections, it was using reflection probes that are baked in advance. Mine are real time. Um, it was doing a really weird thing with shadowcasters that I didn't care for, and so I redid a lot of that. And it's a really good set. This author did an amazing job, but then this kind of does go to show the power of post-processing once you pass a certain point, um, because you can really, um, yeah. So this is my mouse in the old, in the other video, and I start working on showing you actually some stuff in that test project, and this is using like a ton of lights, for instance. And you can achieve a lot of these same effects by using post-processing, by using some intelligent bloom, as that's a reflection probe right there. There's another one. There's all these lights all over the place. You'll see a lot of them are in clusters. Um, you can use emissive materials to get a lot of the effects. And probably the reason that the author didn't do that is that those probably didn't exist when the author was making these. So it's not a slam on the author at all, but it does go to show some of the new tools that Unity 5 has that Unity 4 and prior didn't, and partly why, if you use those new tools and use them properly, you can get incredible performance benefits. And there you go, the sky's pink, and that's because some material didn't import right. And you can see how there's 3 different spotlights right there in that one particular portion, whereas in my scene now, this is back to my live version here. In my live version here, you can see, first of all, I gotta turn on the gizmos here a little bit at least. Oh, they are turned on, that's why. We have 1 light on each of those, not 3. And with this one, it actually took 2 because I needed a spotlight. No, never mind. I changed my mind on that one, and I actually switched it, so it's only 1. These ones require 2 because it needs a point light here, which glows upwards, and then a spotlight, which goes downwards. It's just too cool of effect. Too cool of an effect to break in the name of efficiency. And so you can see a lot of the coloring and so forth. These materials have not really been changed all that much, but you can see all the cool reflections and things like that. And then you see with these lights, that's a heavy emissive texture, as well as then having bloom on it, and then the single light on there. And then in the darkness, you can see that I made some emissive textures for things like these. I thought, well, this looks, perfect. Why not have emissive textures on those? And the doors too. Originally, these had standalone lights, and each light adds quite a bit of processing to the overall like shadow maps and stuff. I'm using deferred lighting, but and so that makes it so that I'm not limited to a certain number of lights, but at the same time, I needed it to be much more efficient than it was. And so we've got these things are basically I quartered the number of lights. And there's still a bunch of other ones that are kind of like hidden and so forth down here, and boom, crash, because that is not updated to its match its prefab, so it's static. And that's one example of something I need to fix. And this scene here, somebody's going to complain, I know it, that this is like overly dark, and why would it be this dark? Point taken. This originally had a lot more ambient light coming in the ceiling, and it was something that I just did not bother to fix because this is a test scene and not something that I really care about. And I did want to experiment with dim areas and see what it's like if the player's in them, because having a few dim areas might be interesting, and with the player having the ability to break lights, that's something that oops, again, with the it being shattered, with it being not shattered, static when it shouldn't be. Anyway, with the player having the ability to break lights, that means they could put themselves in darkness, and they have to be able to play still. And so I've got a light that illuminates the Raptor and a few things, but not a lot of other things. So it still feels dark, but you're never losing your Raptor in the darkness, because I felt like that was important. But there's a lot of things which aren't lit, like the floor, but there are other things that are, for instance, movable that get in your way that are lit, but then like the debris is not. So I felt like it gives a good interplay between light and dark, and kind of simulating some extra vision without going nuts. These particle effects here, you may notice they actually looked better in the original than they do here, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I have not touched them at all yet, and they were really predicated on the idea of the original scene. These are using the standard Shuriken, I guess that's how you say it, particle system in Unity. That is something that I'm iffy on using. I'm probably going to go with Popcorn FX instead, because it allows for some batching that can't be done here. And at any rate, for the fracture system, originally I was going to base the core of it on Dino Fracture, and then I was going to, and I'll go ahead and show you kind of the test scene that's been my nemesis for the last week here. Originally I was going to base it on Dino Fracture, but then I found out that the fractures that it was making had tons and tons and tons of extra vertices, and I wasn't happy about that because hello, Dino Fracture. This is what I've been looking at for all this time. So I went back and saw the actual game. I was like, oh my god, it looks nice. Thank goodness. So this is Dino Fracture with a ton of adjustments on my part. And you can see some interesting statistics over there. Some of the issues that you run into, I'll show you on this here. And now let me pause this. And this is scene view here. If I click on, I've had a crash in Unity because of the static thing, so it won't let me click in directly. So I'll close and reopen. But at any rate, lots of extra mesh geometry in there that's really just a waste. And it's a wonderful fracturing algorithm, but you wind up with stuff that has too many vertices to dynamic batch, and since it can't be static batch, that means your draw call goes way, 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 way up. So you can see the number of batches there is 460. And so there were a variety of solutions I was looking at for that, but here is one of those instance meshes. For instance, you can see it's got over 1,000 vertices and 455 triangles just to draw that little thing. And here we've got another one, and that one's actually efficient, so that's great. And here's one, and that's reasonably efficient. This tiny one's going to be horrible, I bet you. Not too bad, actually. Still won't dynamic batch because it's over 300. That one's under 300, so that's okay. That one's okay. These are actually doing not too shabby. Oh, nope, that one's too many. And so I was running into a lot of them that after a few generations of fracturing, a few different times of a piece getting hit and then another piece getting hit and another piece getting hit, you'd wind up with you know, hundreds or thousands of vertices, and that really was a problem for dynamic batching. I mean, most of these that I'm showing here are still too big for dynamic batching, so that's why you wind up with all these vertices. I added in code to make them fade out nicely, and to make it work. Things automatically register themselves with the occlusion culling system. Um, they had some explosion logic. Now you can hear me. They had some explosion logic to begin with, but I went in and rejiggered that pretty heavily. One of the reasons is that with the robots that are your enemies, there's a good chance that they may cause explosions as well. And if you get chain reactions of stuff, you don't want the frame rate just dropping through the floor. And one of the things you may have noticed when I was running around in the test scene and blowing up a bunch of stuff with really terrible sound effects in there, was that the frame rate did not drop dramatically. There were some parts where the frame rate got into the 30s just because of the unoptimized layout of that particular test scene and the fact that I'm recording. But when it comes to fractures being an issue, Dynofracture has a really great secondary thread fracturing algorithm, and then pairing that with a bunch of throttling on the main thread, which I introduced. It's a bunch of queuing and pooling, and I used about 5 different techniques to make a lot of that stuff happen. This is a pre-fractured one, and I'm using some of that sort of thing in mine as well. And then I'm just cleaning up debris that is either below a certain size and thus it's too small to even be worth it, you can't really see it, or that is above the threshold for dynamic batching. So these ones are below the threshold for dynamic batching, so they stay. And if we look here at these things, okay, I forgot that was the explodey one. But if you look at this one, you'll see that some of the stuff shrinks away, some of it stays. The stuff that stays is the stuff that is efficient enough to, for the most part, batch. Unfortunately, it still doesn't batch because it's using multiple materials, and that's a whole other thing. And I've talked with the plugin author some about that, and that hasn't been super fruitful. Multiple fracture generations past a certain point for doing really good glass breaks was something that was really not working well in the original. I could get to about 9 frames a second once I hit here. Here, got it much more efficient. You'll notice I did have some islands of stuff that was floating in the middle, but that is because this is a test scene where it's assumed that there's a backing, like what I showed you with the pipes in the main industrial scene. And there, the fact that there's floating islands kind of makes sense because it seems like it's all together. These are just standard glued edges, which are, they'll never leave islands in the middle because they're gluing themselves to the edge instead. And so this is what's appropriate for like a traditional window. And versus this is for glass up against something, so hence the difference. This one has a bunch of clinging shards, same sort of thing, and this one that just fractures. And then down this way, he had joint transfer already, which was something, because of the performance issues with this, I spent a good week basing some stuff based off of the Shatter toolkit instead, and building in exploder logic because which is a different tool, and using some stuff from, I think it's called Fracture Pro or Exploder, I don't remember now. At any rate, each of these 4 tools had different things that they did well and other things that they didn't do all that well, and there were a number of issues with most of them. I wound up recreating most of everything that was from here in the other side, but found that without the asynchronous fracturing algorithms, I was getting into too much lag anyhow in really destruction-heavy sequences. This was before I thought of the throttling, and I may have been able to solve that with throttling alone, but I still was having some trouble with certain things like the joint transfer. This guy got working really well, whereas I was having trouble recreating that convincingly. And the joint transfer is very important to me because the robots that you'll be breaking the arms of and so forth, if there's a gun on this bottom thing and it's shooting at you and you break an arm and the gun and the arm goes flying off and that's still shooting at you while the robot's still moving around, and it may have other guns and it still has an arm and so forth, and you can still break all the different pieces. That's some pretty cool gameplay, and that's a big part of why the dynamic fracturing was something that I felt like was important. Things like triggers with the lights and stuff, that was incredibly easy to duplicate, but I made it a little more efficient. There were a lot of things that anybody who is a author of a Unity store asset, or if you're working on your own Unity games, here's a really big tip: is don't go making mono behaviors all over the place. Make instead make it so that you have things like this. This is one thing, a fracture geometry that has a whole bunch of properties on there, and yes, that looks a little bit overwhelming, but it's a lot better than having like 6 different components which all do the same thing, because each, well, not the same thing, but each do a portion of this so that together they do the same thing. You wind up with 6 times as many update calls running and just all this other garbage collection and so forth and so on. And excuse me, it's really not a great thing. This is very cool. This is just a great example of the extreme power of the Dynafracture system in terms of just the speed that is there. The thing that was killing me is the speed after the fact of those rendered fragments. And what I eventually decided on was just a mixture of removing the components, having them fade out, and it's a little game-like, but hopefully not too immersion breaking. And I think it's kind of fun looking anyway. And then also pairing that with the occlusion culling system of mine that I already had, I kind of realized that if it's in a section that where it's being occluded away, it doesn't really matter. Excuse me. It doesn't really matter if it's being drawn a bunch because it's getting occluded away. So if I come over here, and I'm going to pause that real quick, and then let's see if I can even find it now. Here's the localized beams. What's going on? Guess when it's paused, it won't let me. Oh. Super strange. I don't know what's up with the. I see. The localized beams are way, way far away because they fell through the floor. So that's what's up. This one's still intact, so it's local right here. That one does not have an occlusion color on it yet because it gets added after the fact, so it's still drawing. These are drawing because they're slightly overlapping that room. So long story on how it works. Basically, the occlusion culling shoots a bunch of rays out of the camera, and based on that, it decides what to draw, and it errs on the side of drawing a little bit too much because it's cheaper to draw a little bit too much on a modern GPU than it is to do a lot of ray casts. And so you avoid blinking in and out and flickering and whatnot. So what I've worked on thus far with the Raptor game, what my focus has really been, is on making it so that I have a Raptor that controls in a nice way, even though he's not animated quite the way that I want. He controls in a way that I like. Now, this sort of thing with like bumping into these um, consoles, that obviously is not something I like in terms of how he controls. That's something where he's going to auto destroy those as you walk in. That's another reason that I wanted to have this destruction, is because I wanted anytime there was a small barrier like that that's nice to look at, I wanted the Raptor to just vandalize it and get it out of the way. I didn't want the Raptor to just randomly clip through things that he would normally catch on, because that would feel weird. But I also didn't want him uh, getting caught like that all the time. So um, at any rate, making it so that the Raptor really feels good, making it so that things really look good while keeping to a sensible GPU and CPU performance budget. Um, that was, and understanding what my budget was going to be based on what sort of visuals I could achieve. And some of the coolest effects here have almost no performance cost on a modern graphics card. On an older graphics card, some of the cooler effects here can simply be turned off. Incidentally, shadows are one of the more expensive things that you can have on, but you can turn off the shadows, and thanks to um, ambient occlusion, which is very different from occlusion culling. Ambient occlusion has to do with lighting and how there's kind of dark edges in places there would be darkness. So you can see it in these sort of areas. I actually turn it on and off for you. With the uh, ambient occlusion off, that's what it looks like. With it on, you get that instead. And so with the ambient occlusion on, but shadowing off, you still get excellent performance, but you also get, or you get much better performance, but also still pretty good visuals. And you don't need shadows for the dark areas, which is important to note. And we've got some really cool like depth blur and so forth that can kick in, depth of field that can kick in at various points. This is more noticeable in the survival game that's a first person game that I'm doing, but let's see if I can get a really good occluded shot here. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty decent. And somebody was pointing out that the Raptor's head looks super distorted. That's because I'm running at a FOV of 70. And so when something gets really close to the camera at that sort of FOV, it starts looking a little distorted. But oh, here's a good spot to do it. You can really see you can really get some cool depth blur shots, and it's it adds a fair bit, I think, when that sort of thing does kick in. Um, and all the various bloom and so forth as well really adds a lot, you can tell. And cyan post-processing in general, well, that's doing some color masking and so forth. The SSR effect. Um, if I turn on cyan itself, then add the SSR, you can see screen space reflections there. Amplified bloom really adds so much. And the HBAO was still on. The ambient occlusion was still on, even with, um, yes, I mean, that adds a lot. This may be a little bit on the funky end just because of how it is adding in the color. Um, I may need to make some adjustments to the HBAO because I think it's leading to a few things looking a little strange, but it's a fairly minor point. So anyway, yeah, overall, a lot of stuff has been done. I've really been focused on making it so that I can make efficient level design and efficient level creation, and so that I know exactly what my tools were during the creation of levels. And I've been working on making the Raptor control well, gamepad and mouse, keyboard, and getting the animation system and all that sort of stuff up for the Raptor. And we've got a pretty good setup for that in there. And Blue has been steadily improving, not improving. She's completely redone the Raptor animations, and they're a lot less cartoony than this. And she actually re-rigged a number of parts of it because there weren't enough joints in the foot for us to do proper foot placement, and she added some extra joints for some kind of jiggle areas on the uh, haunches and the neck and a few other areas like that that give some added depth and weight feeling to it. And then some work on bones in the neck, because you can wind up getting some interesting uh, torque there that just does not look right. The I made a thing so you can close it and then look around. You can lock the camera and then look around. And at that point, then I can no longer control the camera view, but instead the camera controls make your Raptor look. But it worked a lot better with a different Raptor model I had. This one has a weird crick in the neck, and so it causes some issues. But Blue has solved that. I also have a kind of manual roar thing here, but she's come up with much better ones. And there's a whole lot of interesting things that I've done with the Raptors. Um, well, for one thing, you've got the Raptor's camera that follows him around, and then there's a light that stays between the Raptor and the camera so that you can always see the Raptor. And that was an interesting thing to do so that it would really light things properly. It's kind of cool to see it like this. And then on the Raptor herself, there's a bunch of different colliders on her. And first of all, you've got the main, uh, let's see here. You've got the main, well, where is it? Why am I not seeing it? There's a capsule collider that's right here in the center and that is not drawing for some reason. It's kind of curious that it's not drawing. Doesn't really matter, but that's the, oh, there we go. I guess it was because, oh, interesting. Collapsing it makes it, learn something new every day. Anyway, that's the capsule collider. When you're walking around, that's where you actually collide. These other things here are colliders that only turn on for certain physics events. So when I swing my tail, it swings all of these things. And I'll do kind of a picture-in-picture thing here. You can see how the tail does when the Raptor is, oops, wrong way. There we go. When the Raptor is doing various things, when you bite, you can see the jaws moving and that sort of thing. And it's really neat because that gives very accurate hits with when you kick, when you swipe with your claws, when you bite. This one right here is for when you lunge. It's basically the force of you that gets turned on. And then there's these things, which is not realistic, but it's really annoying not being able to hit something on the floor below your tail. We need to extend these up a little bit because it's kind of annoying not being able to hit something that's slightly above you as well. But overall, kind of a minor concern. And those things are only actuated in certain parts of the physics, not all the time. And it's pretty nice because we've got a lot of different physics layers here. And I guess I'm just giving you a whole tour. I mean, why not? We've got a bunch of different physics layers here, and these ones these are what physics layers can collide with what other layers. You can see there's a whole bunch of gaps, and the reason for that is that there's a really big hierarchy of um, what interacts with what and why, and that is very helpful for everything from ray casting efficiency to occlusion culling efficiency to a variety of other things. And so, and physics simulation efficiency. So it keeps things running nice and smoothly, but it's taken a lot of design to really get that um, all set up. And I've been using this one particular asset as the main thing that I test with, although I do have, like this is a different scene that I've done various testing in to see, how does this feel using the post-processing effects that I've got. And, this one is before any textures were modified on this particular one. Let me make sure that make sure that all my prefabs are cool, are fully up to date. Yeah, I thought they weren't. This looks a little better. This is with the full post processing the nice way, and this here, I mean, this is with no occlusion culling of any variety, um, and I've got some other prefab areas that I'm using and a whole bunch of stuff. But coming up next, I'm going to be working more in sound. I'm going to be working more on like getting Blue's new animations in place, working on actually populating the um, the procedural dungeons with stuff. Working on more in the way of prefabs that are set up. I've already been setting up a number of those, and I've got a bunch more to do. We've got these various things. These are all from the industrial kit, but a number of them I had to like add back faces to, or do a variety of different things to, or I chose to add a extra mask to, or most I'll say all of the materials I adjusted. Oh, particles, that's another big thing that I got to do soon. Lighting, I pretty well got down. Um, and destruction, thank goodness, is finally down. So it's now on to sound, particles, enemies, um, level editing and construction, and a whole bunch of other things. But everything that I've been working on so far really plays into exactly what my, again, like budgets per se, in terms of like CPU cycles and GPU render cycles are for the enemies, the enemy attacks, the complexity of the levels, exactly how far apart each kind of node in a level has to be from the other nodes in order for the occlusion culling to really be made best use of, and yada yada yada. There's just a whole bunch of different things, and I'm really excited about how well it's coming together. It's a little bit annoying that it's taken this long to get some of the things working, like the occlusion culling and the destruction. But what I will say is that at this point, certainly, um, I'm not aware of anybody with a better occlusion culling or a more performant destruction system that is like publicly available. Certainly, I know that's not the case, and I'm not aware of other games that are doing it substantially better in general. So you can see some of the lights and stuff are coming on in here because there's a bunch of reflection probes that this particular scene uses, and that's all pre-baked, and things start looking extra amazing once that turns on. But can't really do that in a procedural games. I mean, let's check this out now. Now it's going to look even more amazing. So this is like a Unity tech demo that they have, and um, I can achieve something kind of similar to this without reflection probes simply by adjusting the materials and by using the SSR tools and some of the other stuff that's around there. And it wouldn't be quite as accurate as this, but I don't think that accuracy is necessarily something that's as important as performance when you're looking at minute details of reflections. People just generally don't notice. You notice the scene as a whole and how good it looks, but you don't notice all the little minute details. And the fact that you're having only things that are visible in the camera frustum being reflected really bothers some game developers when they are aware that that's what's happening, which is what you see right here. But it's not something that you're, abundantly aware of when you're playing. I bet you, unless you're a game developer, I bet you did not notice that until I pointed it out, and you still may be going, "What exactly is he talking about? I don't even see it." So, I mean, there's always the trade-offs between, being like super extra realistic to the nth degree, at which point you either have to do lengthy pre-baking, or you pay through the nose in terms of performance at runtime, and like nobody's hardware can hardly run it, or you make slight trade-offs like this and you get a result that looks phenomenal, but that it definitely will not run on a toaster, but it'll run on most hardware that's pretty recent at a really good frame rate, and with some settings turned down, will run on, again, still probably not a toaster, but I have no idea what the minimum specs are, I'll be honest, but something much less than what's being shown here. So I'm running this on a 780M if you care about that. But so yeah, this is running on a laptop. Anyway, lots more to come. I will try and do better about posting updates for you, partly because I will not be all distracted with the website not working and with the game itself just tying me up in this one stupid area for so long with that destruction stuff. So I will try and do videos that kind of show how things are progressing. I know that was popular with A Valley Without Wind 1, and it's something that I'd like to see, that I hope you'll enjoy here. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This is something that is, I keep thinking of new things that I can do in this game, and I'm like, oh, it'll be so much fun if I, add this or add that. And so I'm hoping that this is something that takes off enough that I can really devote a lot of time to it. And either way, it's going to be really nifty at launch, and something that can, you know, a lot of the things that have been developing out here will form the backbone of a lot of Arcen games in the future, because now we have a whole bunch of tools that I won't have to develop out again, the occlusion, the explosion, and all that sort of stuff. So that's also very exciting and very useful beyond this game. This game is going to be pretty nifty at launch. That's a great marketing slogan, I think. Huh? So anyway, thanks for watching. If you watched this long, you are very impressive. So talk to you next time. Thanks.